Coming up, race-hustling Democrats have still not got the message that voters sent them in the election. And government got banks to spy on inconvenient bank account holders. Texas Democrat Representative Jasmine Crockett takes race hustling to a whole new level. Watch.
To the nitty gritty on Texas, because this is hilarious to me. Texas added 2 seats. In 2020, according to the census, and we know that there was a significant undercount, specifically in Texas for a combination of reasons, but we know that specifically Texas added 4 million people. Of those 4 million people, do you want to take a guess at how many were Anglos? Just a guess.
I'd say a majority.
180,000. That's it, of 4 million. 95% of the people that were added, and we know that when it comes to minority populations, they tend to be undercounted. So get this. We added 4 million people. They were people of color. Texas got 2 new seats. So they took those black and brown and Asian bodies, and guess what? Do you think that we got a new black, brown, or Asian seat?
Crockett explains the election result in race-hustling, race-baiting terms. She claims that black, brown, and Asian bodies were used to make 2 white seats. This is yet another Democrat entirely unconcerned about allowing her stupidity to be put on full display. For a representative, she seems to not understand how politics and voting works, and that you cannot get people to vote in a way that they don't want to. Oh, wait a minute. She is a Democrat. I'm starting to get it. She goes on.
Amounted to 2 new white seats. Guess what? White Republican seats. We got 2 new Republican seats out of 4 million people of color. So let me tell you, they love to use our bodies to apportion us in an inaccurate way.
So, let's get this right. She says that the authorities used black, brown, and Asian bodies and apportioned them in an inaccurate way. This is unbelievably dense. You cannot break the electorate down into little bitty portions to get the result you wanted. You can gerrymander to an extent, but you can only take it so far. You certainly wouldn't be able to gerrymander to the extent that she is suggesting. A little bit of a reality check for Ms. Crockett. Elections have consequences, particularly where the electorate views the government as incompetent. The fact is, many people changed their vote between 2020 and 2024. Some of those that changed their votes were black, brown, and Asians, and in particular Hispanic men, who would have made up a good portion of those 4 million extra people. The problem is the Democrats simply assume that many of those identity groups are effectively their property as far as votes are concerned, and so completely take them for granted. Fact is, Ms. Crockett, your side lost because it was a lousy government and you had a very poor candidate. Unfortunately, the Democrat racist nonsense does not stop there. Just have a look at South Carolina Democratic Representative James Clyburn.
Election from a historical standpoint. And I seem to remember as we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of this country's existence, we had a presidential election in 1876.
Yep.
And you see what happened to democracy in that election. It led to Jim Crow. I'm the 9th African American to serve in Congress from South Carolina. The problem is there are 95 years between number 8 and number 9 because democracy was driven so far down on people's lists back in 1876. And there's a danger of that happening again.
So, Clyburn is concerned about Jim Crow returning. Seriously, It is the Democrat race hustlers who are pushing racism, not the Republicans, who want people to be treated equally and to be afforded the same opportunities as each other. Once again, the Democrats are all about special interest groups, racism, affirmative action, DEI, and a whole lot of other failed identity politics tropes and policies. They have failed to look at the election results and learned any lessons whatsoever. Look at the completely lacking in introspection Barack Obama and what he has to say.
Talk of bridging our differences when the country and the world seemed so bitterly divided felt like an academic exercise. It felt far-fetched, even naive, especially since, as far as they were concerned, the election proved that democracy is pretty far down on people's priority list.
So, Obama does not want to try to bridge any differences. Then again, why would he? So he thinks that the election result means that democracy is pretty far down the list of voters. But it wasn't really. It was just that the voters saw your side as the threat to democracy, with lawfare, the keeping of any form of democratic procedure in the selection of the candidate for the 2024 election, and so on. He had a great opportunity for 8 years as the first black American president. He could have done a huge amount to improve race relations in his term in office. Instead, it was the reverse, and he left office with race relations in a far worse state than when he came in. Once again, another Democrat who should be able to analyse but can't. Or is he simply lying deliberately? If you like this sort of content, please like, share and subscribe. Now, let's see yet more of this nonsense.
There are going to be times, potentially, when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure. That's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm.
So, he talks of one side trying to stack the deck. Notice how much he struggles here. He is completely insincere. Which side was it that went into lawfare to prevent a candidate from the opposing side to stand? I think he struggled so much as he knew he was being completely hypocritical. The reality is, his own side was pursuing all of the things he is talking about here. Perhaps this is why he was so coy and talked about one side as opposed to Republicans or the other side. It is fortunate for Democrats that there are some on their side who see things somewhat more clearly. Have a look at the Young Turks Cenk Uygur and what he has to say.
Latino men is a good example. So Latino men were heavily on the Democratic side, and Democrats view politics. Look, I think the right wing plays identity politics too. Again, we can get into that. But unfortunately for the Democratic establishment, they view everything through identity. And they're like, okay, blacks are ours, Latinos are ours, women are ours, educated are ours, etc. Right? Educated is at least about something you did as opposed to who you are. So, but they took Latino men for granted. And then after the election, when Latino men flipped over to the Republicans and to Trump, they started saying, oh, they're sexist. That's why they got that macho culture, et cetera. First of all, blaming the voters, incredibly dumb strategy and also incorrect. And if you ignore that map that you just showed, that's a disaster for the Democratic Party. If you keep ignoring reality and ignoring the truth, that's how you lead to more losses. So if Latino men are so sexist, then why is the president of Mexico a woman? Right? If Latino men are so sexist, why did they vote for Hillary Clinton by a 31-point margin? This doesn't have anything to do with sexism. What it has to do with is that you didn't deliver for Latinos. Okay.
Weiger says the Democratic establishment sees everything through the lens of identity. Little of it is about achievements, etc. It is about immutable characteristics that you are born with. He points to them viewing, as does Crockett, black, brown, Asian and female votes as theirs. They failed to analyse the reality of why they failed some of these groups, and they claim sexism, racism, etc. Of course, there is no legitimate way that these people could have changed their vote. No, it has to be that they are racists, etc. Or they have become a part of the basket full of deplorables or a garbage. That is what the Democrats really think about those that are not fellow travellers. Meanwhile, the extent to which the Democrats in government completely subvert due process and democratic principles was laid out strongly.
House Republicans demanding answers from the Biden administration over, quote, alarming surveillance on you, the American people.
So documents show federal investigators asked banks to comb through transactions for terms like MAGA and Trump.
So those aren't the only phrases financial institutions were told to key in on in the aftermath of January 6th.
To put it all together, Brooke Singman, who has written the story on .com, joins us right now with details. Good morning to you, Brooke.
Good morning.
Brooke.
Hey, good morning, you guys. That's right. So House Republicans are now seeking answers from a former Treasury official after the agency told banks to flag consumer transactions that included terms like Trump or MAGA. Documents show that banks were told to search for customer data for other key phrases, including popular sports stores like Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, and Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, federal officials also asked those banks to comb through customer transactions for book purchases, including religious texts like the Bible and media subscriptions. Officials allegedly said those purchases could indicate extremism. Now,
this is disgraceful. So financial institutions were instructed to flag consumer transactions that even had terms like Trump, MAGA, or the Bible, as it could indicate extremism. Give me a break. This is an example of the fascism of the Democrats, using large institutions to go after their political opponents. The level of authoritarianism is unbelievable. Remember the weaponization of the IRS to go after Republicans? Remember the Biden administration instructing Facebook and Twitter to censor content inconvenient to the Biden administration or the approved narrative on many issues. Fortunately, time is running out for them and their cover, and the light will soon shine in.
Now, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who is leading this investigation, says search of those transactions violate Americans' constitutional rights. Listen.
So it was big banks looking and searching private transactions using key terms at the suggestion of the federal government to find out what you're buying, what you're spending your money on. Scary stuff. All it looks like, without any warrant, without any legal process, they undertook this as a way to identify domestic violent extremism.
So there you have it. The level of the Democrats' racism, sexism, duplicity and lack of due process. They demean at the minimum those who oppose them and assume that they have always got right on their side. There is no level of introspection and analysis of outcome with them. It is all emotional claptrap and justification of reprehensible behaviour. What are your thoughts on this? Please give me your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching.